Welcome to another Burgundy with Tweedy video. For a change, I am on Primrose Hill, although you may notice it looks like I'm just in the usual woods. I'm back a little bit from the main viewpoint because it's an absolute throng of people. And over on English Sparkling with Tweedy, I did once try and do a tasting video there, actually maybe twice. And there's just a lot of irritating people who seem to think it's hilarious that a middle-aged man in tweed is talking to his imaginary friends in a little box on a stick. So I steer clear of them. I need to be in the area anyway. It wasn't really my first choice. Today, a wine from Vosne Romanée. And this is part of a case I recently bought from Berry Brothers and Rudd. Most of those were quite recent vintages. I think a lot of 2022s because that was just what was available from BBR at the time. But I thought I would sort of push the boat out a little bit. I don't think this was crazily expensive, but try and find something a bit older to add into the mix. 2015. I didn't say the producer name, did I? It's Camille Giroud. Giroud. I assume the D is soft. And it's a vineyard called Les Chalandins. It is interesting how different parts of London seem to attract a very different crowd. We've got so many of these public parks. But Hampstead Heath nowadays, there's a little bit of an element of people just don't care. They just sort of keep themselves to themselves. They're quite used to, probably quite used to seeing middle-aged men in tweed suits drinking Burgundy at the base of a tree. Whereas Primrose Hill, it has a sort of broader appeal. So it includes a lot of people who perhaps haven't lived such a rich and exciting existence surrounded by men in tweed suits drinking Burgundy in parks. Right, what can we say about that? It's quite a deep, dark colour and I can barely see through that, quite opaque. I am a little bit in the shade here, but yeah, sort of deep, a little bit opaque. Before giving that a swirl at all, has one of those sort of plummy, slightly rich sort of noses. Maybe a little bit of tea or some sort of spice around the edges. I definitely recognise this fruit style. Maybe it isn't plum. I keep saying plum for this. Again, I usually use the reference point of plum sauce. But yeah, quite rich. A thick sort of aroma, if that makes any sense. Okay, see what a bit of a swirl does to that. Brightens it up a little bit. There's a bit of red berry fruit perhaps coming into that. Bit like cranberry, but not the very negative version. Normally when I say cranberry it means I'm not going to enjoy this, but there's a little bit of smoke there I think as well. Yeah, definitely something slightly smoky. Bit of spice, bit of smoke. Rich, thick, quite condensed fruit. Yeah, similarly quite rich, quite thick. By Burgundy standards, quite full-bodied actually. It's never really full-bodied in Burgundy, is it? But it's at the higher end of medium, as high as it can go and still be medium, because I don't think anything in red Burgundy goes beyond medium, does it really? And more of those slight smoky notes, slight licoricey, slight spicy sort of notes. I suppose there's a bit of tannin wrapped up in all of that. Again, something slightly reminiscent of tea there. Certainly not fresh and juicy and young. This is something that's got a bit of a career behind it now and has become quite condensed, quite rich, as I say, again, with a reasonable amount of spice. Interesting. Not so obviously Vosne Romanée in style. I think of Vosne Romanée as being, but this is probably more down to house style and how the wine is made, but I think of sort of lighter, more elegant, more floral wines. And this is something quite rich and thick. It's not bad. It's partly just a question of does it suit this weather. It was promising to rain earlier and I was quite looking forward to putting up a tarp, sitting under the rain and having a bit more space out here in public when everyone else goes home, but that hasn't really materialised so far, and it's actually quite warm, a little bit muggy, fairly summery sort of conditions, and yeah, this is probably more fireside, wintry sort of Burgundy, but it's almost reminiscent of mulled wine. It's got that richness, that slight hint of spice. Well, mulled wine's usually got a lot of spice, and it's all, I suppose it is kind of condensed, and in a way that's like concentrated, but Overall, I would say nice, but not for this time of year. And not very Vosne Romanée-esque either. Cheers. It's a bit hard to read these initials here, but I think that's WR. One of the ones back there was a bit clearer. Should have taken a shot of that instead, which presumably means this lamppost here in Primrose Hill was put up in the time of King William IV, I guess, 1830s.